Time for live. I guess we should do the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, why don't you grab a chair and come up closer here? You got the agenda.
I did, yeah.
Jeff, yeah, come on, you guys.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Come on. Jeff, pull up the chair. So, I don't know, how do you want to start the conversation? Let's see. The steps we need to take from here to get this project going. Can you outline them for us where we need to do? Because we got this Bridge New York grant.
Yep. Yeah, I can. But first, I'd like to say, seeing this is my first official time in front of everybody, congratulations again on being able to get the grant. And, you know, this is going to be great.
Thank you for all your help.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. But I hope that everything goes well, goes smoothly, and, you know, the bureaucracy that can be involved in the process can be painful the first time you go through it. 100%. It's a learning curve for sure. But just keep your eyes focused on the fact that the grant was gained and we're going to replace the structure there, and you're going to get an excellent structure in replace of it. So just keep your mind on the end.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
As far as the process goes, I will start with a little bit of a caveat, and the reason why I wanted to bring Wayne, I am mostly always on this side of the table when it comes to these programs. We are hired when a lot of the items that you're about to go through have actually already been done, or through municipalities that do this quite often, where the process is just rinse, repeat, do it over and over again. So I can do my best to give you the advice of what I know about Wayne's background, outside of working with Colliers at one point, also now currently working with Floyd Albert. His background is helping other communities with these same types of grants, and also as the county DPW commissioner for Rensselaer County. So on the municipal side, dealing with a lot of the financial end to the extent that the DPW commissioner would. So I will defer a little bit to Wayne in helping these. So various items have been emailed to the town for setting up the Bridge New York paperwork. And some of those forms, we've given our advice on how to fill them out correctly, get them over. And I know that those have been sent to DOT in the process of getting them signed. More recently, I know DOT has sent a draft resolution, and that's going to be one of the main items that's your next to do on the list. It's my understanding, Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, getting the resolution signed and getting the master service agreement with DOT is first step, and then going through approval of the consultant that's going to be selected, their proposal. Usually
They can run concurrently if the town chooses to do that. If they prefer to get their state local agreement first before you enter into an agreement with Colliers, you can do that too.
Do you mind if I ask a question? So there's a proposal here from Colliers. Does the town board need to approve this and sign something to approve it, or?
There's going to be a contract that is put together that is in a format normal for these types of funded projects. I do have a sample that I shared with Joe and Kathleen.
Yeah.
So when signatures come, it will come on that form that has to be filled out. You'll take portions of this, which I've already given an electronic copy.
Okay.
You'll fill out that front end. I imagine that you'll need to take a review through to make sure any other items that the town would specifically want as terms of the contract are also included, because the form I shared is just a boilerplate standard form.
And this is something between the town and Colliers, correct? Right.
Yep, DOT, I think, gets a copy of those, right? The consultant agreements, do they get sent to DOT?
Yes,
Okay,
they
so
do.
a finished executed copy would go to
So
DOT.
they need to see the scope and fee.
Right, gotcha.
Don't we formally have to appoint or accept their
You do,
proposal?
and again, you do have to do that, and then you'll be signing something with it.
Right, and where I was going with this is it probably would make most sense unless defer to how your town process is. There would probably be a resolution or something where the board says yes
Right.
to the proposal, then signatures, it may be authorizing the suit.
I would do two resolutions. One is that resolution to enter into an agreement with DOT. And a second resolution to enter into an agreement with Colliers.
Collier, right. Okay,
And we can help you draft those too. We've seen.
So along those lines, then, they do have that sample resolution.
Mhm.
And then there's the local project agreement with DOT. Is that what you're referring to?
That local, and that's gonna be the agreement, that the town has to enter in, DOT for the particulars of it.
Yeah, and they only ask for the signature pages back, correct,
Okay.
with the resolution, with the certified resolution.
Okay,
That's what they used to do.
all right. And looking at this resolution, sorry to ask so many questions.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, no,
What concerned me is that the town is making a commitment, 100% of the cost, and then it says the sum of $1,665,026 is hereby appropriated from, and there's a blank. The town hasn't appropriated money yet from anywhere, and I don't know what sort of fund balance it has, but it may not have it there. We may go out and borrow these funds.
Right.
So can this get signed before we've lined up financing? I guess is my question.
yeah, I'm gonna definitely defer to Wayne because of this history, but my understanding is that, the money will be reimbursed. It's a matter of having what's needed when an invoice is sent
No.
and holding that balance until you can get reimbursement from from the state in this case. So the money it's twofold. It's one, having money available when an invoice gets there. Number two, it's showing letter of credit is showing ability to have that kind of financing.
Yeah, I don't know the exact wording. I'd have to go back and look at one I did for a town in Rensselaer County. I think you can say appropriated from
Or through financing. Okay.
through municipal bonds
Yeah,
or
okay.
whatever.
But you don't need a specific institution who has agreed that they will back this.
Correct.
It's just more of a general term that there's a financial institution backing.
There's a mechanism for which you'll get the money.
Okay.
And then should we include something there, Jeff, in that about pending, pending that approval or pending, just so that we're not, I mean, I don't know, I have to look at the wording and we're on the hook there for that. What if we didn't get, what if we didn't get the financing? Do you see what I'm saying? We'd have to, let's make sure that
Yeah, I
the
almost
wording
feel
is.
like we need to line something up with the bank
exactly.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Letter of credit.
Letter of credit,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And there's something to just be clear about when it actually comes to invoicing and things of that nature. The 1.6, that is not coming January 1 of 2020.
Right.
Oh, no.
Right, so it is paced out, it goes through that whole entire project line. Invoices that first come in would be from our firm when we are able to begin, and they're a few $1,000s. So as far as that holdover goes, it's holding on to a few $1,000s at a time until you have that reimbursement. And as far as the reimbursement goes, some of the other clients that we've worked with have stated that once the reimbursement is requested within 30 to 45 days, they've received the reimbursement. So the time you're holding on to some of that balance is about a month to a month and a half.
I just want to ask about the local project agreement with DOT. Just can you sort of review that? Like they're involved because of the funding that we need. Like they're not going to have any say throughout the course of the project of yay or nay. You're doing this right. They're not going to have anybody on, or are
The
they?
inspections
Yes.
or.
Well,
Are they?
They will, yeah.
They would be the ones to do
they're-
the
yeah,
inspections.
They,
not to that degree.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, yes, review that with me.
Okay.
Like their input on this project.
so there are standards that have to be met in order
Absolutely.
for the funding to Basically, if you're gonna get the funding from the state or if it were a federal program, if you were getting, money from the federal program.
Yep.
It's almost a policing. Is it being done according to rules,
DOT,
standards and specifications?
Yep.
So there are DOT reviews that happen through the whole entire course of our design services.
Okay, so my question is like, when we go throughout this project and we could submit to DOT, maybe engineers inspection reports or anything like that, but would they have actually somebody coming in to review it as well, like the project?
We have a contact.
Yeah, not
Local
entirely.
contact and
Not-
contact
yeah.
with DOT.
But
Yeah,
I'm not sure about that.
like,
Physical.
their overall, yeah,
we'll split it.
and
into
that would depend on, like our reimbursement, right? If they agree that it's being done properly.
Oh,
To state spec.
audit is at the end.
Okay.
If we split it into two, design and construction, the oversight that will be involved during design is almost entirely remote.
Okay,
Other than one project where I know that DOT did come to a public information meeting, I don't know of DOT involvement during design on site or coming in or inspecting anything of that nature. What usually happens, we will create certain deliverables, certain documents, plans and reports. Those documents will go to DOT and they'll have that review. We transfer them through email or through a system they call ProjectWise. And then they do the review and then they offer comments back. So
Okay.
it's kind of a review and comment part on the design.
okay,
During construction, I have seen, depending on the scope of the project, I have seen DOT individuals at a pre-construction meeting. I have seen them occasionally out at the sites, but it really depends on the scope of the project.
okay,
If we were talking, $17 million construction and it involved state roads in addition to something that the town owned, that you would see much more DOT involvement. This, I don't.
okay, all right, very good, got it.
Can we go back? I just want to go back to the financing again. Just so that when we do approach potential backers, financial institutions, and they start asking questions, well, when will you start drawing dollars?
Mhm.
If we've already had some dollars set aside that we can start to draw, for instance, on your initial invoices to us for some of the preliminary work that Colliers is doing, and not tapping that. Does that all get verbalized with the financial institution first? Because I can't see some of this dollar from the bond or the backing is not going to really be tapped until late into 2024 or even 2025. What you guys saying they're going to be looking for with the application form is promissory, that there is a backer. They've agreed, no matter when it occurs, they're the ones that are going to be co-signing with this project that they're backing, just so that there's a cash flow, because we have to pay up front in order to submit the voucher to the state to get reimbursed from the state.
So if you have, say, fund balance, and you can start to pay, Colliers, to take care of the upfront costs and start your reimbursement process early and often,
Mhm.
get a cash flow going, and then you can pay that money back into your fund balance or reappropriate it back into
Right.
your fund balance, and then just keep as the bills come in once a month. It's a little bit of work, but get those reimbursement requests in the DOT so the checks come in at a regular rate. So
And
that
they're aware we're then active and therefore they're used to receiving them, and we start to get that flow
Yes.
rather than waiting a period of
rather than
time.
waiting till you have $100,000 and then
Yeah.
ask for reimbursement requests from DOT.
What do you normally see as a delay in that process when those vouchers are submitted to a grant like this? Is it a 60-day, 90-day? That will help us adjust flow also.
It's fluctuated so much over the years, but lately it's been 45 to 60 days.
Okay, that's not bad.
Not
Okay.
bad.
Okay.
I would say the first one is always the toughest. You gotta
Yeah,
go through
because
it,
it's
gotta get
new.
used to it.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. What we've also mentioned to Joe and Kathleen, we will do invoices monthly,
Mhm.
even if You know, I don't necessarily like, invoicing, like nitpicking invoices for like a $500, but if that's it, that's there that month, we'll do it so that there's reimbursement. So monthly reimbursement. What I would say to be aware of, our fees, the first year, the maximum that could happen in 2024 is about 139,000, roughly 138,000 roughly per this. So the maximum invoice that you might see from us is a $20,000 invoice or something of that nature during the month. Please do understand and be prepared when you get to construction. A contractor's invoice might be a $250,000.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, it's a monthly estimate, exactly, sure, oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you. But you can set it up with a lending institution or a bonding company to have the funds available without tapping into them right away.
Mhm.
And then when you get to the point, you could probably get some nice cash flow going during design. Then when it comes to construction, that's when you call in for money out of the bond. Yeah.
Thank you.
So for December's town board meeting, we would need a resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute the agreements Colliers. Then we hopefully will have lined up some financing, or we'll have a bond resolution, one or the other. So that then we can get this resolution signed. Then we got to authorize the supervisor to sign this local project agreement with DOT. That's the stuff that needs to get done to get this all going.
Correct. Yeah, those are your next steps to get to this.
Okay.
There will be other things I imagine that will come up. The involvement with the town board passing resolutions, though, I think is this. I don't know of anything else that could come up. I think
It
there'll be
requires the approval of the board,
yeah, I think after this, there isn't.
just the supervisor will have to sign stuff in the design report
You may, right, you may want to make part of your resolution authorization to,
authorizing the supervisor to.
yeah, and that's gonna be, so we'll create a design report. The design report documents everything about the project proposed. We call them alternatives, the preferred alternative, which is the one we go with, and various other items. It all has to be signed, by a town, by us, and it will then be designed. You know, so those are some of the items that.
So is it the supervisor's authorized to sign design documents? Is that
Yeah,
accurate, or do you need more than that?
Engineering and design?
yeah, I don't know if there, because the other thing that can come up here, I want to be cautious because we'll capture it all.
Design approval.
It's design approval, but also, right away. There's going to be easements and there's going to be, there's definitely going to be an easement and somebody from the town has to sign those.
And there's some other checklists too. I think complete streets is.
Complete streets
I
is
think
a,
the
yeah.
town has to sign that.
You might need to work on some
Say
more.
all documents are
Yeah.
necessary.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
might need to be.
That's fine for a resolution.
Okay.
And then we choose a design, right?
Yeah, so there'll be, there's always what they call the no alternative, which is you decide not to do it. It's almost never picked, but it is required to be in there. So I
Right.
kind of ignore it.
Yeah,
On top of the, and that's always the first one. Then you get your, 2 or 3 alternative designs, and usually it's obviously going to be a bridge. It might be 2 different types of bridge. One could be a steel, one could be concrete.
yeah,
Another thing that we're looking at is a slight realignment of the road. So part of the alternatives could be, what if we keep the alignment exactly as it is, or what if we move the alignment slightly so that the new bridge is built on the side of the old one, keeping the old one active. And then when the new bridge is built, you switch traffic over to that, you demolish the old one. There can be alternatives.
that would aid in MP&T.
Yeah. So those are the variability between them. And then you take a look at what the cost of all of those
You
are.
give us a design estimate.
Yes, they're all included in the, yes,
Yeah.
in the design report. And then the sponsor does have to pick which is your preferred alternative to go to.
And then we pick that,
And then,
we go out to bid.
there's more steps in that. You'll pick the design that you want to progress. There'll be a design approval. And then it's all the detailed plans and everything that we put together for bid documents. So there's
And
an intermediate.
you do
step.
the bid documents and then we go it out. Okay.
And then how, this might not be a thoughtful question, but once we retain the firm who's actually going to be doing the construction, is they're gonna give us a timeline, right, for when that starts and when that ends, and do we have any kind of way of keeping them on track? I only bring this up because I know Pine Plains, they had a bridge that was out, and it was almost 2 years before they rebuilt that bridge, and all the residents, I mean, it took almost a half an hour to have to go around, so I just wanna sort of get an understanding of what kind of recourse we have, of any, to move it's not even a contractor, I guess,
Do you
everybody's
think we'll
doing.
be able to leave that road open while this is going on or not?
One of my alternatives is going to be doing that exact thing, keep the road open and the existing structure open, and to basically, I don't have a good map here, but if you would be able to imagine slightly adding just a very small curve into the road before you get to County Route 90, and it would realign the road. You build the new structure right off to the side, keep the old structure there, traffic.
Would that require us going to the property owner there to get some of that piece of that property there? Yeah,
Yep, there's going to be a need for that no matter what, because of the town, it appears that this is a user road. So as part of this process, that user road item has to be cleared up. So there's going to be what we call a taking, if they were to it's going to be a purchase or easement of some sort that you have to go through. We're going to have to do it no matter what with that property owner. So it's a matter of, do we keep it narrow over the existing structure, or is it a little bit more so we can build a new structure next to the existing structure? But no matter what, you're going to have to do that process.
Yeah, and in the contract documents, the bid documents, we can put a deadline in there, which is preferable, put an end date
Yes.
in the contract itself, so that the contractor isn't gonna go past the deadline and.
exactly. Makes sense, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and to your question, what was just being said about the deadline, in addition to being able to put in the bid documents a deadline for construction to be complete, the construction inspection that's required is going to be done by Floyd Albert. They'll have an individual that's out there on site or in charge of making sure that everything is being done according with the plan, according with where the schedule is. So you will have some level of control with the contract that is signed with that contractor.
Mike just raised a good question.
go ahead.
No, just that if we have to purchase or have some sort of an agreement with the resident whose property we might be infringing upon, and I have to look at this grant specifically, but perhaps because you were so close with us in doing the application, would this money cover part of that if we had to pay the resident for part of the property? Would this grant money cover it?
I believe it would, if there is any that is remaining within what's there. If there isn't, I would draw attention to something that was brought up. There was 165,000 roughly that was stated that if more monies were needed, that it could be something that the town had funded. Usually the cost of these land transactions is pretty small. So if there was money within the grant, I believe the answer is yes. The money that would be in the grant remaining.
But we had to put up 10%, right? Is that what you're referring to?
The possibility of using up to 10% was what that 165.
Okay.
So if something went over, if construction did go over, when I looked back at the meeting minutes when we had the talk about the grant, it was basically that we had come up with a very conceptual cost estimate that was higher than the dollar amount that you could get for this. And what was just discussed is if there was a 10% contribution, up to 10% contribution by the town, that would be reasonable. So that was what the 165,000 is.
Okay.
Roughly.
The degree to which that private property may need to be negotiated would get determined after the design work is done?
The first portion of our design work, when we put together those, they call it a preliminary design report and then eventually a final design report, we will figure out the extent, and we will even do some of the legwork of the right-of-way portion during that whole process.
So I'm thinking more of small community, everybody knows everybody.
Yep.
We would want to perhaps address that issue verbally with the owner, that it's a potential.
Yes.
Should that occur now?
Yes.
Gotta be careful with that, Dan. with what we say to
Oh,
property owners,
the
because we have to
process, yeah.
follow the Uniform Act.
Correct.
And the
Right.
purchase of property. You can't make any promises.
No.
You can't make any,
Mhm.
you can't coerce them to
But
donate.
just the
it. You
knowledge
can't-
out there that somebody's, unfortunately,
saying-
the word is taking,
Yeah, that's right.
stirs up some emotion, and
Right.
therefore we want to lessen that. So
Yeah, you just gotta be careful what you say.
just a casual conversation saying
Yeah.
there's going to be need to, with the redesign, that some of the,
Acquisition is a word that,
and that became a conversation a number of years ago when we were even looking at this problem. The
But that
gentleman-
might not be the entire solution. though.
Correct.
I mean, we might, right? You're gonna offer that as a
an
design,
option,
but then
yeah.
you
There-
have another one with just keeping. the
right,
same-
but there,
I would wait for you to say.
Yeah,
Until you get at least through
I have another,
the design report.
like, how about, maybe this isn't possible, but partial bridge removal where you keep it on one lane going and then you build a new on, is that possible with this?
we can look at it. This, I will tell you that the structure is in pretty rough shape.
Okay.
Cutting
So
it
it
right
might
down
not
in
be
half
possible.
might not
Yeah.
be
Okay.
structurally sufficient, and it is also narrow.
Hmm.
So being able to maintain a width that's viable for traffic.
That'll drive your
Okay.
construction cost up too if you have to stage it in two pieces.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It does get done, trust me.
It does, I've seen it.
On extremely heavily, traveled roads, you have to do that.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
So the pricing, there's a proposal from Colliers and it talks about acquisitions of property, but here it says for partial acquisition of real property rights valued at 50,000 or more. Then it says for acquisitions of real property rights valued at 300,000 or more. That cost isn't included here.
Right, and I will tell you that you're not gonna get up to $300,000. I mean, some of the temporary easements that we're looking at on one side of the road, it may be a few $1,000s. That is standard language that goes into a number of these proposals. Did you have to also keep in mind some of this language that's used elsewhere through the state? You're working on $50 million projects that are miles and miles long, and it's all the same language used over and over again.
Okay.
So there are different parameters based on the scope of the project.
But when we look at the overall estimated cost, which I assume this is $1,665,026, is there $0 in there for acquisition right now? Do you
No,
know, is anything built into that for acquisition costs?
I don't have what we call a 353C, which actually kind of estimates
Yeah.
what those costs might be at this time. The idea would be if I need one temporary easement on one side and it's a $2,000 fee within the dollars that are there, I imagine that will cover it. If another type of acquisition was a $10,000 or $9,000 acquisition, I still think there's enough money within the 1.6 million to cover it.
There wasn't any money in the IPP.
There is, the IPP has the,
I'm trying to look right now.
if you go back
I
to
thought there
the,
was some in there.
yeah, there's the money that's there for the consulting fees, but I don't know that,
Right away incidentals, so 15,000,
15,000.
right away acquisition, 15,000.
There you
So that's
go.
built in.
Yeah.
Okay.
When this is over, this is looking forward. And I think I've asked you this before. This will now be a bridge, am I correct?
Correct.
Is this, I'm not sure this is probably good this to ask. Does this fall into the county inventory at that point?
I don't 100% know how the county inventory works with the bridges that the county owns within town lands. I can tell you that this is currently an 18-foot span culvert, and what we will be moving it to is in the span of a bridge. It will be a bridge, and it will have a bin number and fall into that whole category.
So there'll be inspections, site inspections.
Because the county they have a minimum standard, right, for the length of the bridge.
It's 40 feet, I thought.
How much?
It would be.
Right.
If that's it, then that would make sense.
25.
Yes.
I think it's 21 from that.
Yeah, something like that.
And if it is 21, that would make sense because 20 foot and below is technically a culvert.
Yep.
21 and higher is a bridge.
I will tell you from my experience being a county guy,
Yeah.
that new bridges that would become part of anybody's inventory, I think the county has the option
Yeah.
of taking them over.
Well, they did it here years ago.
Right, when they took
I was
all of
just
them,
wondering, yes, I was wondering.
those were existing,
That's correct.
yeah.
That's
So
correct.
if they took them as part of the inventory, does that mean that they're required to maintain them?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Hmm.
positive.
Yeah, right.
No, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
how do you get along with the county?
Not
Pretty well.
Yeah, we're good with
That
it.
might help you.
Yeah.
I will tell you that one of the requirements that we're going to have because of how close we are to County Route 90 and the other bridges that the county owns that are downstream from the stream here, we will have to be in contact with their engineering department. So it will be part of our design
Well,
process.
that's,
County Route 90 is Canby Road.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes.
Participation by minority group members and women, and then service disabled veterans. You guys covered that in your proposal, right?
Correct. Yep, we've got
companies lined up that
Yep.
meet those requirements.
Yeah,
Yep.
Floyd Albert's on minority.
minority, person who's gonna do the geotech is the woman-owned business, and then Kurt Bedore is the disabled veteran business.
So then our next step is at our December
Yeah, I gotta do a
meeting.
bunch of resolutions.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
My life.
Yeah. Well,
Do you want me to see if I can find one that I did
Yes.
that has the specific language as far
It's
as
the finance.
where the appropriations are coming from?
Yes, that'd be a big
I
help.
can do that.
In the
I did
past,
it when I was at Colliers, probably in your file.
I know, you can just let me know which one they are, if there's 10, 13.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my email address is on there. and,
Do you have an extra one? If not.
I do, yeah, sure.
I'll take it.
Or we can email you his.
Yeah, that's
We
it,
can
that's
do
it,
that
yeah,
as well.
yeah. Thank you.
in the past, whenever we borrowed money, we would go and Mary always asked the Bank of Millbrook and then I think Salisbury at the time.
Right,
There are two, I think.
Right,
least.
for rate.
for rate.
Yeah,
Right.
competitive rates, yeah.
I assume that's what we'll do with this.
I would think so too, yes.
I guess my question is, do you have to, you actually don't have to take the bond this year,
Right,
because you're not gonna have. to-
No, we need
But it has to
need
be
to
in
know
the
that it's
document.
committed.
I know, I understand that.
So we don't have to tap it
It's
until
on a
next
letter
year.
of credit, is it not?
yeah,
For
Right,
finance,
exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's,
However, with the
and
way
it's
the
every
rate,
fiscal year too.
Yeah.
So you may not get that.
but the way the rates are changing,
I know. that's
we
what I'm
may
saying.
want to lock it in now, even though we're not going to be accessing.
I don't think
You
you
don't
can,
wanna pay interest on it until we get going.
right,
Well, that's a conversation we have to have with the officer.
yeah.
You know,
I spoke briefly to David Fountain, just to give him a heads up. So,
And I think, Chrissy, you were researching who we did the last bond with.
I emailed Mary and I have not heard back.
no, it's always been through the bank.
No,
No,
it's always been, and then I think
Salary.
the second salary,
and that was the other one we got right.
that just got
Yeah.
purchased by somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
So we can check it.
but the bank has always been very good.
Yeah. So if all this falls into place, December contract, the whole bit, what kind of timeline are we looking at as far as starting to get preliminary stuff from you? January, February, March?
Yeah, so first thing that we have to do is some of our legwork. Unfortunately, we're coming up to winter.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Some of the things we have to do is survey, and the environmental work will have to wait until basically April to. It's going to be very simple where the wetlands are, but
Yeah.
you can't do it necessarily officially and document it as being done during the winter. So we have to wait for those months. But we will have items that we can begin on in the January, February timeframe. I would say draft design report now is sometime in spring because I have to get the field work done. So we can work towards having that draft design report and what all alternatives are. And we can do the conceptual work on the alternatives during the winter, confirm wherever the wetland lines are, wherever the stream lines are, make a couple adjustments and hang that in. So there's things that we can definitely work on for sure.
And actual construction has to be at a certain time because of the stream, it's a classified stream, am I right?
I have to check to see this, but there could be construction restrictions, schedule restrictions, depending on the sensitivity of the stream.
Right.
Yeah, if it is a trout stream.
Trout
yeah.
spawning stream, you can't even get in there until June, right?
Right, yeah, so that will be the only time, which is still okay because for bus traffic, school, you want to close roads during summertime.
Absolutely, right,
So
yeah, good point.
in developing the alternative, or your first thought of one staying open while the other one's being worked on,
Mhm.
if that wasn't capable of being done, in order for us to prepare for questions from the community, how long would that road be closed down if we didn't have that ability to keep part of it open, part of it out?
Some of that will depend on the design that we pick. I don't want to get too technical.
No.
If I pick
And
up.
we won't hold it to the dates, but
Okay. You could have the road, if it were completely closed, precast three-sided that comes off the truck, they'd have to demolish, that'd take at least a few weeks, and then it'd be like 2 months of it closed before traffic.
Okay, it'll take 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
because we've had over the last couple of years, closing down a couple of roads here because of damage during storms and
Mm.
replacing stuff.
Yep.
And you just want to keep everybody informed.
Yeah.
Yeah, best case scenario, a contractor gets awarded as early in the year as you can, so he can schedule the precast.
Yeah.
If they're doing precast concrete so that they can get manufactured and he won't, it's a good contractor, he won't do any demo until he knows
Yeah,
what day
yeah,
those
right.
precast units are gonna be there. So
And
that would keep it, so you don't have it closed for more than you have to.
those are things that we can program into both the plans and the book, the specifications, that there are certain days that roads have to be open. If there are holidays and things like that, if there were any events, we've worked on projects where, marathons get run. So we have to look for where the schedules are to make sure that the roads are still open and then we close afterwards. So we can kind of control a little bit of that.
Mhm.
So in addition to, hey, you have to be finished by a certain date, we can give them the window of, June 1st to September 1st or August 15th or whatever, you can have the road closed.
And that bridge is used for agricultural purposes too, so we want to work very closely with the people involved down there.
Yeah.
So that they know and they can kind of plan out what their routes are going to be while this is going on.
And it's one of the reasons why I want to see if I can get the road and have it parallel,
Yeah.
because then that way we don't have to worry about the detours.
Be great.
Are you planning on a public information?
Yeah, well, yes, yeah, there'll be, so the public information meeting will happen somewhere between our draft design report and the final design report. We get you the draft. You kind of in your minds decide where you want to go with the alternative.
Mhm.
We will have a public information meeting. We get, there's a 30-day period for the public to comment on. We get what those comments are. Those can be folded into what the eventual decision is, and then the town will make a decision on which alternative you like. We wrap it into a final report and send it to DOT for the approvals.
And what's the time frame for that?
Design report as is right now, the draft we can have in springtime, and then it's going to kind of depend on where we go. I would say you're finally probably asking for final design approval over the summer. So you're looking at a public information meeting, say June timeframe of this year. Caveat, as long as all the due diligence, the survey, and we can get to that point. Let's just target it like a June public information.
All righty. Anything else, John?
Covered my questions.
Anybody else have any?
Are you got anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right, we'll do what we need to do to get this ball rolling. Yeah, appreciate you.
Congratulations on winning the lottery again.
Huh?
Congratulations.
Don't win a lottery.
Yeah,
That's what it's like.
I will say this is the type of lottery that you can win multiple times. So keep those thoughts open, for anything future that you guys have anywhere.
well, your work and your help had a lot to do with getting it approved, so.
I will tell you what I think was some of the magic behind this is number one, you had preliminary work done. That is huge for these. The fact that you had a survey done and the fact that you had some preliminary look
Right.
at this. And I would advise if you ever look at anything like that again, consider doing some of the preliminary work up front because it helps. The other part is all of your effort in helping get the public and other public officials to give their opinion on how important this infrastructure is. I think that did a lot.
Yeah.
As well. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming down. Appreciate
No
it.
problem. I agree.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Good to see you
Welcome
again.
to God's country.
Yeah.
I go from one God's country to another.
Yeah, you're in a good spot up there, for sure. Be safe going back.
Thank you.
And, we'll be in touch.
Heading back.
Yep, we're heading back.
Alright.
Yep, but don't worry, I'm down here in Dutchess County often, so I don't mind this drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks again,
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Wayne. Thanks a lot.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
See you, Joe.
All right.
Good evening.
Yeah, thanks again.
Evening.
We have the AKRF contract. Need to be signed.
Remember whether at the last meeting they authorized the supervisor to
I-
sign it?
I think we
Yeah.
did.
I think we did. I just,
But you want to do it in case we didn't?
Doesn't hurt to do it again.
yeah, I'm pretty sure we did, but I just want to make sure this was the right one,
Yeah, I'll look at it quick.
if you don't mind.
So I'll make the motion that the supervisor signs the document.
Second that. All in favor?
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
Had a couple copies. After a while, they were, oh, this is purple. Let me get you.
Did we, did you all, last week come to a conclusion about the building inspector position?
We're doing this right now.
Okay,
Talk about that.
I just didn't see it on the agenda, so I didn't know if we were covering it or not.
And is that open meeting or is that executive session?
Executive session.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Signature page is,
Oh, you know what? It's on the back of the first page, believe it or not. It's,
Wow.
yeah.
Switch.
Thanks, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
You can have this one.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about in public session?
Just,
are you going to reflex on any findings? No, okay.
Yeah, they'd be attorney client anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
That- okay.
I spoke with Nat on my way over
Okay.
here. So I think that you and Nat and Joe and I should have a call
Thanks, Joe.
to talk about it, because she had some thoughts too.
One thing, tomorrow I'm gonna try and get over to Village Hall to discuss with the mayor the recreation contract.
Let me
Oh,
see.
okay.
I did reach
Awesome.
out just to see if there were any updates.
Because Danielle was able to give me some specific weeks and times that she would need. It looks like an 11-week period for basketball. So I want to talk to him about. Because when we looked at past contracts and the current contract that's being offered, that's a 12-month contract. But we don't use the facility every month. So basically we're paying for
Right.
no use.
Right.
So I want to talk to Tim and tell him what we're thinking and see if we can come to an agreement on something. So I'm going to try and get over there tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. And I'm gonna show you this, Mike. I did hear back from Nancy. She said she did circle back with Matt. He was gonna come back with some other numbers. I wonder if you want to reach out to him too, since, yeah, and that way, you're in direct contact, maybe, before or after you have a chance to talk to the village. I mean,
I'll try and get some numbers.
yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay.
Did any questions, comments? We have to go to executive session.
That's not about this.
What's that?
Can I make a comment that wasn't about your road thing?
What's it about?
It was about the last meeting.
Sure.
So during the last meeting, there was participation in, the hearing, which is the time when the public is able to do that. I recently had a discussion about this with your board member, Mike Murphy. And I know that I brought it up in the last meeting. If you don't allow the public to participate during the process, their closed meeting, their workshops, the time, as Mike made rightfully clear to me, to participate is during the hearings. And during this last meeting, there were members of the community that did come in, one in particular, and brought up a lot of things that I hadn't thought about, and were good points, I thought, to consider. And it just seemed that it wasn't very welcomed. And later in the meeting, there was a discussion had about how they commended you, Leslie, for handling this member of the audience. And, you know, it was a difficult thing. And it really upset me because, again, I feel like as community members, the time that we can speak is at the end of the process. And so everybody is very set and feels very attached to whatever direction they're going. I mean, you've already put forward a law at that point. And so it was just really disheartening as I keep talking on about this, that when somebody did, it didn't seem to be taken in an open way. And then again, you know, they're later in the meeting, I can give you the exact point in the meeting. You know, Leslie again was commended by you for handling it. I think you, Gary, were, you know, really particular on that. And I just think that's wrong. This is a community member who spoke. She was an informed community member. She brought forward serious things at the time in which we're allowed to, as community members, to do it. We cannot participate at other times. So it's just, again, I know I'm flag waving, but it's upsetting to me that it didn't seem to be the best showing of democracy in action this last meeting. And
Okay.
Well, I think I'm happy to, I think that was the third public hearing on that particular legislation, and the hearing for that night was about the entrance and about lighting. And so I think from my perspective, we did not receive Susan's letter. It was dated the day before. I didn't see it until after the meeting. I think both I and Joe, who've been doing a lot of quarterbacking, interfacing directly with the consultant and with the lawyer on this, said at that meeting we were going to look at it, and we're in the process of doing that. I just think at some point, you know, when you're moving along and you're going through all the proper steps, and this is the third public hearing, and it's on those 2 points, and then you have a resident come in and introduce new things really very late. So it's sort of as if I don't, maybe they were just aware of it at that time. And again, we didn't pass a resolution. We didn't refer it. We did take a pause and we're looking at it. So we'll do that.
but again, and I understand the frustration, and I can respect that there would be frustration. But again, it is the open meeting. It is the time when they can do it. And I look at it again, that it's wonderful to have participation and to have people weighing in at any point during the process, and especially at the point in which it's the only point we're allowed to. So I think that she brought up some points that I think are worth bringing up regardless of whether it comes at the beginning of the hearing or at the end of the hearing, or you know.
For
the
sure,
last
and that's why we
minute.
didn't pass it that night,
Right.
right? So her comments were taken into consideration.
No, and I respect that, but I think it felt like the tone that was that you were caught in your back feet. And it, was unfortunate that everybody didn't get the memo before the meeting. I can understand the frustration of that, and even for her, that it was sent in and got caught in trash, whatever. But it was the comments later, an hour and 17 or whatever into the thing of like, no, I mean, it should be like, it's great to see participation, even if it is at the 11th hour, and it gives us another opportunity to look at it, the fine tooth comb, rather than sort of handling the audience. And because it shouldn't ever be a fait accompli before the whole process goes through. That's what makes sense great. I think that's the democracy thing here.
Yep.
It's messy, but there's value to it. My feeling.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for the comment. Lana, did you have anything?
Well, I got Bob to come with me because as you know, we're an abutting property owner to the third area that you're looking at over on Halcyon. And I'm concerned about the larger lot, so I'm trying to get to as many meetings as possible because we are coming in on this late. And I know you keep going on about why it's important to change the zoning, but I really don't see why it's important to change all the zoning at one time, especially when we're looking at changes with short-term rentals. We're looking at other uses in the village, and it seems like you're going to flood the market and then have to deal with a lot of people wanting to restructure their property in other ways. So that's why I'm kind of interested in it, but I'm also really glad that we came because I don't know how often you all are on Canby Road and Oak Summit, but I'm probably on that road going over that bridge 4 times a day. So I know it quite well. And you just kind of back up, and since you've done all the repairs on that bridge a few years ago, why is it being changed now, or why is it being replaced now?
It was determined by the county several years ago that it was in need of replacement.
Okay.
And we kind of been patching it, trying to keep it as long as we could. But it's basically outlived its useful life and it needs to be addressed. And that's, it's a very difficult project because of the location.
But there was a grant, Alana, that was available for us to pursue in order to try to do it. So that's why the timing is what the timing is. Because that grant became available, and so we decided to apply for it. And I don't know if you could hear the gentleman from Colliers. He helped us with the application. It's really hard. I mean, it is kind of like winning the lottery. It's rare that municipalities get it. So we thought if we were able to get it, we should do it because we have been, advised that it will need replacement. So, but I had a long talk with Nan this afternoon. So your question about the lots. Nan Selzenberg is the consultant that worked with the town. And she said it's important to remember, and I really thought this was very clear language. So I wrote it down, that it's an overlay. An overlay is an overlay. The underlying zoning still applies. And I only bring that up because as it relates to setbacks or size and scope, those particular empty lots where you're referring to, you couldn't build, you would still have height restrictions. You couldn't build a 20-room in there.
And also allow days in to go in.
No, they can't. They can't. And the other thing too,
Not even in the side.
I just want to say the same thing, that currently the village, for example, already has zoning for a 20-room inn, all over the village. And guess how many inns were there? 0. Okay, so
This whole
just because
comprehensive plan
there's a-
review on hospitality was completely against allowing a days in. I mean, we just have to,
And
You
I
have to-
understand that,
you have to, okay. So, yeah, we won't labor it, but just so you know, it's just not gonna happen.
Right.
It's not gonna happen.
But if it doesn't meet the setbacks, of course, they can apply for variance, like everybody else.
Sure,
they could apply for a variance. I guess they could,
It goes before planning.
sure,
but it goes before planning and zoning.
I mean,
Yeah.
the process of your.
Correct, absolutely.
exactly.
But it's not to say it's inconceivable,
And-
it just means it's gonna go through the.
but then
It's-
will it be the benefit for creating that route rather than just putting the restrictions in now?
Which restrictions are you suggest? I mean, when you,
Not by putting the overlay on.
Why would you take away somebody's potential for like something that would be useful? You know, whether it be like a 5-room, inn or something.
Well, because
That would
it's
be-
sitting on probably the most,
Like, why would,
it's sitting on a wetland.
where's the wetland? Where?
across from
Right
Bennett?
there, it's on the maps.
Across from Bennett?
Yes, if you looked at the map, it's the most protected. Yeah,
Okay, so then
They'd have trouble,
they'd have a lot of trouble.
they'd have trouble doing
Yeah,
something.
so,
But Elizabeth, I don't know about that because I just finished the NRI maps. There is very sensitive water over by the Cottonwood. There isn't,
it's the same level. It's an aquifer recharge and it's a, what do they call it?
That would have to be
not an
determined.
exact word. It's the higher standard you have to apply to it. I just,
well,
I also think it's a strange thing that. I mean, the Daytop is completely different and I attended the meetings when the septic failed up there and. That was way back in the last planning board and. Iterations ago, so I'm pretty familiar with that property. But this one is, I think, really sensitive and frankly, if you look at mostly Millbrook or Millbrook moms, the homeowners that are around there, every single time it rains, it's why isn't the town helping us? Why is the town letting us get flooded? Why is the town not repairing?
By the Bennett line. I mean,
the monument,
Yeah.
that stream that goes down, yeah, exactly.
It's that it extends there and it
Yeah.
goes all over and it goes down.
Mhm.
So, it's just to me, I think you've already got that seemingly residents complaining constantly, it seems, from what I'm reading. It would just seem problematic. And it also just seems strange to me that if you're going to change the zoning for a neighborhood, and I know it's not required by New York State, which I was very surprised, why wouldn't you let the abutting homeowners or property owners know, like theirs, it's abuts it, it's directly there, and at least give them the opportunity to weigh in, to say, yes, they would also like their property to be considered, not to speak fuel on it, but it's just by chance that they.
yeah.
know that.
I think though, if you talk about the water, and again, I don't see that from the NRI maps, but that's helpful to know that there's some water issues there. The underlying zoning still supersedes any overlay. So it doesn't do away with our wetlands law. The same level of due diligence has to be done as if anyone that's one plot over or anywhere in the town would have to do. So, and there's a commercial property, as you know, right across the street from there. So
which one do you mean?
I'm talking about where Bennett is, and then there's the daycare there.
Yeah,
I'm saying that it doesn't, Elizabeth's raising the issue around an aquifer or flooding there. If someone was to build a house there, or if someone was to try to build a house and put 5 rooms there, they'd still have to go through the same process in terms of density, water, and everything else. So
it's a federal wetland, I think is what she's referring to. I'm looking at it right now. So yes, there is a
I
federal.
think we're not talking about the same parcels, because I have the most updated NRI maps, and there is There is no,
Like it's the corner
I'll
of,
show you.
it's a corner of, Halcyon and,
Right.
343,
The
right?
tennis courts uses
So
it.
that's where you mean, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
no, I'm talking about the empty lots, not
Yeah,
the,
that's right.
No, that,
The
it's,
tennis
that's
court.
right across the street from it.
yeah,
You want to see?
yeah, sure. Then they can't build anything there, but.
Right.
Well, no,
Look
because
at-
it's across the street. So there's the empty lot. And the green is the federal wetland.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Mhm.
So it's these lots here,
Well, and this
But-
one too.
So it would be,
right, but I don't,
it would be.
then they would have to,
Sorry.
so- but Ceylon, then they would have to, they couldn't build anything there.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that someone couldn't build
Stay
something
here.
if they wanted to.
I put
Here,
them
if
in
they, if
and
it
to-
was within the
stay
50
behind.
100 feet of the wetlands, which they
He's
may not
fine now.
be able
He's
to there.
close to
Right.
this.
This is 119
But
feet.
that's a
Right,
positive.
but the property, what I'm concerned about is this one.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the
That's
only-
not
he
part of
never
the,
would've
oh,
taken
Yeah.
it.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
sorry, I
not-
thought,
Yes.
He definitely-
your concern here is because you're next door to it?
He probably had a very good.
I see.
And because it is a large lot,
So
there
you
isn't
moved
that
down?
much
Yeah.
going on there.
I can imagine. It was.
Just keep
How
an
about
eye
you?
on that one.
Yeah, I totally understand you
And
keeping an eye, and I just don't,
So where are the wetlands there? in
and
that
there aren't wetlands
There aren't.
there. It's
There aren't.
on this corner.
Yeah,
And that's where all the flooding isn't, right?
right,
That's
right
at the
there.
corner. Yep.
Where that thing sits.
Yeah, so there are, you could build on that lot, you just couldn't build anywhere within 100 feet of
Of
this.
that. Okay, which is.
Now
across the
this,
Street there.
right,
Okay.
right, yeah. Yep,
All right.
I think it's a, again, as she was explaining, and this is there's, let me show you the other points about things being site specific. I think the most important point is that allowing a potential hospitality use there does not mitigate or does not supersede any of the zoning that's already in place. Does that make any sense? And I also don't, that's an area where the residents identified as a good use for hospitality. But it doesn't mean, as Elizabeth pointed out, on that corner, there's water going underneath it. They can't build, no one can build anything within 100 feet of that because of our wetlands law. And you can't get you can't get a variance for that unless and someone could sue the town if they granted a variance for that. I don't see why they would. And I don't see what demand really anyone, but I don't think there's a huge demand for that right now.
They maintain 100 feet and still be within setbacks?
No,
No.
not in that particular corner, but if somebody wanted to buy two parcels and put something in a back, potentially perhaps they could.
Wait, do you mean, which two parcels would you mean?
There are two parcels there. There are three parcels that abut each other. On that corner where there's no, except for
But those are already built, those are already existing. It's the one
Right.
across the way that's 2.5 acres.
yes, I'm saying that that would have that issue on the front side. So maybe,
You mean on the 343 side?
yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's been my experience that once it gets to the planning board level, if you don't have these things really carefully drawn out in the law, that's what they refer to. So it's just, I don't have, there are areas of, there's in South Road, a house that was stuck right in the wetland.
yeah.
These things are all over the town, and I think
Well, that could have been that could have been grandfathered before the wetlands law was in place.
That was the house that was built and that was left abandoned for a year because they couldn't get steel.
I see.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, listen, we're discussing all this
Yep.
with Nan, so I'll certainly bring that up with her. I mean, she did write a very,
When they got to the.
Yeah. Sorry.
They had to do the septic.
yeah,
They couldn't get a septic permit because they didn't have soil. So
I'd like to think any hospitality, like,
Well,
to address that as
well,
well.
I think probably one of the perks, let's say, for that area on Halcyon is I believe I don't know if they would look up to it, but there's town sewer on Halcyon.
yeah.
That might be,
You mean,
town sewer.
yeah, the village.
You don't need the ground.
Yeah.
And you have water too, someplace.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of guaranteeing hookup, and I know that you already went to the village and guaranteed water hookup there. But, you know, I think when you have, you want to have an unlooped water system in the village, the sewer system doesn't even currently, nor does the water system extend to all the village residents. It's, you know, putting more strain at the bottom of the system when it's not looped, et cetera, is not great. I'm the last house in village water. All 9 partners, except for the county home on the road, do not have sewer. From my house all the way down to Bennett, there's no hydrant. There's no water protection. You know that if there was a huge fire down there, they'd have to lay a large diameter hose because we have that big fire drill for Bennett that would have to go up to Thorndale because the stress on an unlooped system would be problematic. I think you have you know, everybody wants to have these things, and I think that's great. And I actually like hospitality stuff. That has nothing to do with anything other than it's a small rural village of not very many residents that are basically being asked to subsidize this development when they themselves are not getting all the services. And and it's an old system, an aging system, and not an ideal one. So I don't think that if I had been in the meeting, I would have said my 2 cents about guaranteeing them water. I just don't think that's really the way to plan. But again, my experience with all of this and years of meetings and even covering these meetings is that the law needs to be as straightforward and clear and answer these questions, because then again, once it gets diluted, it's going to get diluted when it's the planning board, because you have the interest of whomever, usually an outside person, coming in. There's going to be the feeling of needing to accommodate that, and again, they're going to refer to it. So that's going to be how all the decisions are made. So, you know, voicing these things now and talking about them and really giving as much daylight and conversation to them is really valuable. I would also go back to what I said earlier. I think it should be in our regs that if there is an overlay, if there's a change of use of a neighborhood, whatever it is, I do not consider that commercial, the old Hayes Nursery School spot. I realize it is, but it's very different to have hospitality running entity than to have what's now Cardinal Hayes, extension of their facility. That there should be at least notice. I mean, if there was a garage put there at the planning board stage, there would be notice to the neighbors. But a complete zoning change, overlay or otherwise, not being told, I think is just bizarre. And
oh my God, I'm pretty sure that we followed all the steps that we should have.
well, you're not required by New York. And so so the neighbors were not told. That's why I'm just saying, I think the standard in New York, it was so surprising to us that this was the case, should be we should have a higher standard than what the state or the county does, and say, if we're going to change the zoning of a neighborhood, I think it's only fair that the neighbors know. It is literally by chance in a conversation with Alana.
We would definitely not do anything like that without notifying.
I think it's important.
No, I'm
It's not changing it's
We're not.
adding an overlay, it's adding another, and someone right now, Elizabeth, could apply for a special use permit for that property and build a hotel. It's actually, we're providing more parameters on it. It's actually giving
More difficult.
it's giving hospitality more
It's
parameters.
more regulation. and we should-
but-
If you had this next to you, would you want to know as a property owner that this overlay was being put down? It was being proposed. I mean, let's look at Middale. I mean, would you want do you think it's fair?
Well, I think it's different, allowing an inn with setbacks when actually you're already allowed to have a 20-room inn, which is what's the only thing that could ever possibly be there, provided that you meet the setbacks, and the parcels are really small. So that's not a development, which is what that was. This is a hospitality overlay, allowing hospitality in a place where the residents, after an 18-month process, said that they wanted it. Now, looking at that Aquaphor piece, I will go back to Nan and ask her about whether certain parts it even makes sense to put something there if somebody can't build anything there anyway because of the lot size. But we followed that to the letter. This isn't just something that and the entire community was made aware of it if they lived here and they were engaged in their community. Not everybody votes, not everybody pays attention, but those that do, hopefully will participate. And you do pay attention, you do participate, and it is important and it is valuable. And I'm glad that the Nielsen's know and that we can have this conversation. And we're talking to Nan right now and we're talking to Jeff about looking at it. So we didn't pass anything. We took a pause and we're looking at it.
No, and I appreciate that. And I respect the master plan. I was part of the process. I think, Gary, you're misunderstanding me. What I'm saying is that during this process, you didn't not do something that you were obligated to do. There was not actually an obligation on you by the county or the state to notify the neighbors. I'm just saying that if you were an abutting property and this overlay was proposed, and you know how hard it is to get information out there. I mean, sometimes it's easy, sometimes not so easy. I would think, I would want to know if next door to me, there was a hospitality, I'd probably be excited, but regardless, I would want to know.
Well, you can have it right now. I mean, as a village resident, you could have a 20-room inn,
Right.
move in next door to you right now.
Right, but I have the town on the other side of the road, so I'm not.
But wherever,
I'm
but you
just
understand what
saying-
I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's
but I
almost a tempest
understand-
in a teapot.
But I
yeah.
understand, Tony, for Alana, who is right there,
Gary,
she didn't know, she was never told, so
do
it's
you
fine.
remember when the county was going to make all the changes with the infirmary property? And there was this big meeting and people from the county came out, and you were there, you were there, Greg Culver, and somebody asked Bessie Prisco what the town's stance was. And it came to light that the town hadn't been consulted with these huge changes that were being proposed at the infirmary. And Bessie, in her really beautiful, kind way, just said, well, a phone call would have been nice. Like nobody had just even reached out and told her that there was this massive change being proposed at the infirmary. And that's kind of what this feels like. It feels like if it was one person instead of a zoning change that we would have been told. And it just, as Lisa said, I mean, just pure chance that we found out that this was even happening. And it's a zoning, it's an overlay, but it's still a potential change happening literally across the road and on 3 contiguous parcels. And it changes, or it has the potential to change that flavor of that neighborhood. One of the reasons that we purchased that house was because almost everything that part of the Halcyon Bennett area is over 200 years old, is 150 to 200 years old. And that's kind of sweet. So we didn't want the days end across the way.
Yeah.
All right, well, we appreciate you coming here and we appreciate your comments, and we'll try to correct anything that in the future that we may have missed. But I mean, we've tried to be as diligent as we can when we have issues like this to get the message out.
I know, and I know how hard you all try to get people to fill out that survey, and about 10% of the population filled it out. I know. I would invite all of you, if you haven't walked down by that part, please do so. I mean, there's a lot of changes happening in that immediate neighborhood. And, there's nothing like a site visit to figure out what direction you feel that area should be headed towards.
Fair enough.
I would also take a look at their house. They're doing a beautiful job down there, and I didn't even know it was Mrs. Bennett's house. I can't. It's like this little gem that's there. Well, it's not so little, but but I had never noticed the house because it's behind. It's on, what's the College Lane, but it's sort of, it Pals in, but it's kind of up and back. You sort of don't notice it, and then once you do, I just say it's really nice to see something being lovingly.
Sure.
But it's not just ours. I mean, the two houses across the street, the two owners across the street did amazing jobs with their property. And yes, I do, you know, please come see us. From that area.
All right. Thank you. We have some other business we need to do in executive session, so. I'm gonna,
Thank you.
Jeff, I'm sorry to keep you here.
So do you be for the executive session?
No,
Fair enough.
not unless,
You can just briefly.
Get clarification what Nan said.
Oh.
We're going to go into executive, right?
Yes, motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Particular personnel matter, yeah.
Yes.